It's Ardwulf. Welcome. We're going to do a little retrospective on Buckeye Game Fest, which for me has just ended. It is about 10 p.m. on Saturday, and convention still goes. It's still going right now. People will be playing Euros and such, and maybe even some smaller war games late into the evening. But my big game has wrapped up. I'm not going to go on the convention's final day. I've been at this for a week now. The convention started for Wargamers on Monday. For the rest of the gaming populace on Thursday, I've been playing somewhere between 10 and 14 hours of OCS every day this week. So my brain is totally cooked. I'm amazed I can even speak coherently at this time. Buckeye Game Fest is a great event if you're a board gamer, where you can basically play all the board games you want. And if you're a war gamer, we have space in the war room where we can fit big war games, small war games you can finish in an hour, war games that'll take you all week and still not finish. It is all good, and we had a whole mix of that stuff. Now, I'm not going to give you all the details because, man, I don't remember half of them. I have to look at the pictures myself to figure out what happened. But go check out my Twitter feed. There's a link to that in the notes below. I posted a lot of pictures of most, but not all, the wargaming type stuff that was going on. Not every wargame adjacent type thing was even limited to the war room. Great event. Think about it for next year. We already have dates for next year's event. It's going to be at the same location. It's the Hyatt Regency in downtown Columbus. That's a big step for various sort of logistical reasons related to the running of Buckeye Game Fest in the past. Right now I want to talk about something that I'm not going to do any more video on. I might do more video about Buckeye Game Fest, but I'm not going to do any more video about the loot. I decided I was going to not do unboxing videos, and I could have easily done unboxing videos of several of these things, but I don't want to. I want to get away from unboxing videos. There are basically three ways to buy war games at Buckeye Game Fest. One is to go to the dealer's room, where Enterprise Games, which is a great folks, they're out game store out of Indianapolis, I think. They come to Origins every year. They come to Buckeye Game Fest for the last couple of years. They stock a lot of GMT stuff and some stuff from other war game publishers. I bought a number of things from them. Another thing is to go to the Consignment store. We'll get to that and how it works in a minute. But the third way is by talking to somebody that you know that is coming to Buckeye Game Fest that has a game that you want, that you have money to give them for it. Such was the story behind 3 Days at Gettysburg, third edition from GMT Games. The price I paid for this was not cheap. It was not an unfair price, however. This was in the shrink wrap, and I think my associate's eyes bulged a little bit when I handed the money. He handed me the game, and I removed the shrink wrap on the spot. In between turns of OCS, I actually punched and clipped the entire Army of the Potomac. Didn't get to the markers or the Confederates. This is a game I've been looking at for a long time. I've got a couple other games in the series. I'm especially curious to compare it and its results to Last Chance for Victory from the Gamers at MMP. I think this has a little more ability to be a Gettysburg sandbox than Last Chance for Victory does. So that's kind of one reason why I wanted it. Plus, I have a couple other games in the series. This is, of course, the ultimate, as of this date, evolution of the classic Terrible Swift Sword system from the SPI days. This is Great Battles of the American Civil War. The series has been around for a very long time, since like 1976 or something like that, with Terrible Swift Sword. It is a quite different system nowadays in the GMT incarnation than it was back in the day. So I'm curious also, and I'll talk about this a little more later. But it's still alive, it's still going strong. Not all the games are designed by the original designer Richard Berg anymore. But it looks great. The box was surprised me that the box was as light as it was, but everything's there. It looks fantastic. What did I buy in the dealer's room? I bought, other than like card sleeves and stuff like that, everything I bought in the dealer's room came from Enterprise Games, which I'll put a link to their website in the notes below. Great folks. They will make I made an arrangement with them to say, hey, if you bring these couple of things, I will buy them from you. And they brought them, and I bought them, and I got a great price. And I'm really happy at their pricing. I'm really happy with their service. Don's a great guy. I can't recommend them highly enough. Their prices on stuff that is legitimately collectible is fair. It is not the extortionate pricing seen in some corners of the internet that I won't mention here. because they aren't paying me to advertise their overcharging marketplace. One of the things I did buy from Enterprise is this No Retreat, the Italian Front. So I want to say first, before I talk about this game, I want to say, Mick, if you're watching this video, I loved your channel, and I would like you to come back to YouTube. A guy named Mick, I can't remember his last name, did a video series on this game, and I've wanted it ever since. And Mick had a whole bunch of other really good quality wargaming content, and he pulled his whole channel, and I think because dickheads gave him too much crap over it. So Mick, if you're watching, screw those people, get back to this. This is a very interesting system. I recently picked up the French and Polish fronts game, also from designer Carl Paradis, or Paradis, or however Carl wants that pronounced is fine. It's a fairly abstract but not particularly simple series of games. The best known and best regarded probably is the Russian front one. I actually probably would have bought that if it would have been there too, but it wasn't. This is the one I wanted because I am interested in the topic, and it is an underexplored topic in wargaming. Pardon me while I sip a little water. I didn't drink enough water at the convention yesterday. So it's an underexplored topic, and we have here a giant 3-inch box that's heavy as a brick. There's three mounted maps. Yeah, there's 3 mounted maps in here. Super nice counters. Not a huge number of components, but the components that are there are really, really good quality. Also from Enterprise Games, as some of you may know, I am a big fan of the Great Battles of History series from GMT. Designers Richard Berg, Mark Herman, and various other folks. This is Chariots of Fire. This is an interesting entry in the series for a number of reasons. One, it's ancients, which most of the series is ancients, but not all of it. It's really ancients. It's ancient Mesopotamian warfare for the most part. Now I guess in Asia Minor too. Starting 2300 BC. This actually has a Battle of Troy scenario in it, which has the heroes from the Iliad, and you can have duels between the heroes and stuff. And I don't know how it works mechanically, but it sounds really cool, and I like the series a lot anyway. A volume focusing on chariot warfare sounds really cool. You notice me not unboxing any of this or showing you components. I'll get to that too. More or less on a lark. Not really on a lark, because I've been thinking about it for a while. I picked this up. This is the Tri-Pack Battles of the American Revolution that was released, I think, last year. Yep, last year from GMT. This has the first 3 games in the Battles of the American Revolution series in it. It is also in the giant 3-inch box. GMT, thank you for the 3-inch box. It has 2 double-sided mounted maps, thick counters. There's tons of content in there. This is not a period that I am exceptionally interested in, but if I am going to own a tactical American Revolution, this is where I wanted to start, because it's got 4 different battles in it. Actually, Utah Springs, or whatever it's called, is in here too. So huge box. This thing is heavy. Great looking game. Also from Enterprise Games, Gathering Storm, the prequel to A World at War. Now this is an interesting cat because it is just what it says. It's a prequel to A World at War, so it's quite detailed as abstract pre-World War II games go. Here's the, I don't want to bust boxes out at this point. I'm exhausted. Here's the map board. I mean, it's just an area map board. It's not, you're not like moving pieces from hex to hex or anything like that. But despite that, this is really heavy. I thought this had a mounted map at first, and then I opened the box and said, oh, well, it's just packed with stuff. Briefly, this box is pretty packed with stuff. There are cards and stuff. Doesn't make it a card-driven game. Now, the interesting thing is you can play this standalone, and there's some scenarios too. Or you can play it and then turn your pre-war situation into A World at War, which is particularly appealing. They did some games like this at WBC this year. There's a Pacific version in the works. The very last thing I bought from my friends at Enterprise Games was actually on their bargain rack. So I got this for really, really low price. This was all this stuff was in the shrink wrap. I don't keep stuff in the shrink wrap. In their Quiet Fields Antietam 2 from the Gamers before they got bought out by Multi-Man Publishing. This is Hideous Map Encounters this side. This is a really interesting looking series. We actually had 2 different pairs of people, 4 different people, sit down at 2 separate occasions during the convention and play 2 different Civil War Brigade series games. I found that really interesting. I think one of our other local guys said, oh, am I going to buy a couple of these too? And he bought one of the games in the series. So we may actually throw one of these, either this one or Shiloh, which my buddy bought, on a table pretty soon and try it out. I'm curious to see how this system works. It is also kind of a classic system at this point. Now, the third way that one acquires Wargames at Buckeye Game Fest is through the Consignment store. There cannot be an auction at Buckeye Game Fest due to our ludicrous auction laws in Ohio. Thank you, state of Ohio. But despite that, we have what's called the Consignment store, which basically runs like a consignment store. It's sellers put their games in, and they're able to specify three prices: the first period price, the second period price, and the third period price. And generally speaking, the first period price is, I would love to get this much money for this thing price. The second price tends to be what you think a fair price for the game is. And the third price tends to be, please take it away. So there are three different periods, and they shut the room down between those periods where people go in, can buy stuff, and if you feel like you want to wait for the next price down, you can, and you're taking the chance that somebody else will come in and buy it. So I waited, with one exception, I waited till period number 3 to pick up such gems as the Guns of August. This is a punched copy. I don't know if that's some old school counter storage right there. It's put everything in a giant bag. I don't know if this is complete or not. At a glance, it certainly could be. This was $5 at the please take me away price. This is a game I had back in the day. I'm kind of happy. It was kind of on my list of things to acquire should I encounter it at the correct price. And $5 is the correct price. The box looks like it had some moisture association at some point, but otherwise the box is great. All 8 corners are intact. I'm always happy to see somebody else that doesn't blow the corners on their games. Now, lest you think that the consignment store is full of war games, it was mostly Euros and stuff like that. But there was, war games scattered throughout. And in that selection was a number of unpunched strategy and tactics magazines. I believe all from the strategy and tactics era. And I'll show you what I got there. This is actually kind of where I was going with this whole thing, because there's basically 2 real prizes that I got out of the loot from Buckeye Game Fest, one of which was 3 Days to Gettysburg, and the other one was the last game I'm going to show you. But the first S&T I got is the Battle of Monmouth. Now, this is S&T number 90. I want to say that this may have been the very last S&T that was produced by SPI, as SPI before they got taken over, however that worked, by TSR. The magazine looks interesting. It was a couple bucks for it. Game designed by Eric Lee Smith. These are all unpunched, by the way. The counter registration on Monmouth is trash, so I will absolutely not punch it. What I might do, if I really want to play it, which I might not, is create my own counters for it and play it on that map. Another interesting thing that I ran down was out of S&T number 85, Fighting Sail, Sea Combat in the Age of Canvas and Shot. I have no idea who the designer on this is. However, I do feel, in my opinion, this is the very finest cover to ever appear on the cover of Strategy and Tactics magazine. It's a great cover. Don't know how the game is. Counters look fine. Everything's here. A lot of these actually contain the original inserts, like customer response cards and catalogs and stuff. One of them has a event flyer for Gen Con East, like whenever that was. This looks interesting. I actually wanted this too. This was a couple bucks. Adding to my growing library of Age of Sail ship combat games. I want to try this one out so that I can compare it to Flying Colors and Wooden Ships and Iron Men. And I've also played Close Combat from Clash of Arms, which I actually like a lot. So that was a neat and somewhat unexpected pickup. One of the things that was on my list, I have a list, okay, of old stuff that I want to pick up or pick up again after having it back in the day. There are very few SPI titles on that list. I could take a whole video explaining why that is, and it's not because they're all crap. It's just that there's not many on the list. One of the things that is Cedar Mountain. Now, I had this back in the day, never played it, never punched it, got rid of it. This is interesting. For one thing, because it's small. It's a magazine game, right? It's one map. It's one counter sheet. You can play it in an afternoon. It's not a huge investment. But interestingly, there is a new version of this system in here, Twin Peaks, which also contains South Mountain. This is the new system for Great Battles of the American Civil War, which is, as I mentioned before, quite a different system. So what I'm really curious to do is actually play out this very manageable game and situation in both systems and see how it plays. Counters look good in this. Again, these are all, they were baggy. The magazines are in fabulous shape. So, I mean, honestly, if you can get the magazines for a couple dollars, hell, they're worth it. But the S&T prize for the consignment store for me was this. This is the only thing that I bought in the second period and not the first. Sicily, the Race for Messina. This is part of the Victory in the West system, which is so good, or so it is said, that it has been resurrected multiple times by multiple companies under multiple different brand names. This game, this is pretty close to the very end of the line for SPI. This is S&T 89. And this thing, I'll show you the counters, but I'm not going to break the map out. It looks good. This game looks good. The map is nice, and the counters, you know, I pulled this out. I checked these things before I bought them, of course, because they weren't actually sealed. These SPI counters, man, these were a joy to handle. This kind of matte finish, mid-period SPI counters. The stock's not particularly thick. It's a Broncore stock, but they had this really nice matte finish. Now, the downside of this style of counters is that they tended not to wear well if it was a game that you played a lot. I don't know if I'm going to play this a lot, and I don't know for sure that I'm going to punch the original counters in the other three S&T games. This one I will totally punch, clip, play it. I'm excited to get a hold of this game. This is a game I've been looking at for a long time because it's a really well-regarded game, but also because I'm interested in this subject, and I have multiple games on the invasion of Sicily. And this is still, some people say, the best game on that topic. Very interesting to see how this very well-regarded system works. There's also a second sheet of these markers, and I actually got 2 of these. I don't know if you were supposed to have or not. I gather no, but hey, I got an extra one, so that's cool. But yeah, this was a really neat and not really expected pickup. I mean, in this consignment store thing, you really never know what you're going to find. There's an excellent chance at this particular event that you're going to find some old Avalon Hill stuff. So I was kind of counting on that. And there's most of the stuff on that list is Avalon Hill stuff. Not much of it's SPI. So I managed to get one of the relatively few S&T or SPI titles that I wanted at a price I wanted to pay. I did pay $15 for that. I consider $15 for an unpunched Sicily, S&T Sicily, to be a more than fair price. I think actually $25 is probably about the right price point for now for that. I also picked up some counter trays and stuff from Enterprise Games. The best place to buy counter trays in the current GMT style. I'm really exhausted now. I'm going to go to bed. I'm going to walk the dog and go to bed. So if anybody has any questions about Buckeye Game Fest, or you want a pointer to any of the things that I've mentioned, let me know in the notes below. Give the video a thumbs up. I'll try to do more event recap stuff. I actually do have some footage for from the event there, which may or may not make it onto the channel. I don't know. I had a great time. I'll absolutely going next year. It's one of my core wargaming experiences. This is the first time I've gone to a wargaming event and played one game the entire time. Which I would encourage anybody to do at least once, even if you end up thinking you're never going to do it again. It was a really great time. Also, everybody that goes gets a free game, so there's that. Like I said, like the video, subscribe to the channel. There'll be more wargaming content from me in the near future. For tonight, I am going to crash. Everybody have a great night.